Hey poker people, thanks for watching and for subscribing to my YouTube channel. We are going to do a little hand history review of a live MTT hand sent to me from Matrim Cawthon. We're going to be using Flopzilla to range our opponent through the streets and ask some good questions along the way to help us figure out this hand. So let's go ahead and get to it. You can see I've got the tournament or the hand description right down here. It's a live MTT, nowhere near the bubble. We have a 17,000 chip stack, and this is roughly the effective stacks as well. So we have about 55 big blinds at the 150-300 level. In middle position, we're dealt the ace of diamonds, king of diamonds. Under the gun limps, and we raise it to 1100, which is a great isolation raise. I'm really happy with that one, of course. The cutoff calls and the under the gun calls. So let's see. Oh, just let you know, the cutoff is our main villain within this hand. The under the gun falls off at the turn. So we're just going to concern ourselves with the cutoff's range. When I am calculating somebody's calling range, I start with, my preset calling 2-bet ranges. And live MTT players, they can often be very loose and passive. So let's start them off with the widest range right here. I think I can safely assume that he'd be 3-betting the queens or better and the ace-kings as well. No reason not to at this point unless he has a read on us, so we can take those out of the range. And I'm pretty good with everything else, starting with this range right here. So far, we don't really know anything about the opponent. Matrim didn't tell us anything like the guy calls super wide out of position, like all suited kings and queens. He didn't mention that. So we'll just stick with this standard calling range from a loose passive player. All the way, 5-4, 6-4 or better, pocket pairs, and most broad, or all broadways, of course, except for the ace-kings, which he would 3-bet. So we can look at 28%. His calling range is a 28% range right here, and it's 343 combos total. Our hand has 66% equity, you can see right down here. So that's a great start, So far, we're ahead of this player. Let's see what happens on the flop. Okay, we've got a 3-way pot. We're in the middle with the under the gun player and the cutoff after us. The flop pot is 4,000 after our bets and all the calls. The effective stacks are 16,000 now behind, so we have a 4 times SPR. The flop comes king, 8, 7, all spades. One of the ugliest flops that we can hit for top pair with no backdoor draw at all. I mean, zero backdoor draw. What a bummer. We're just hoping to hit a king and then an ace on the river, in order to make money from this hand. But what we could do is toss out a good sized bet to maybe get all the draws to fold. But undergun checks. The hero bets out 1,500, which I'll have to say really feels like a scared bet. Or an ultra going for value bet. Like if you had the ace queen of spades, and this is the kind of bet that you would make. Just about everything else is really scared of this board, and that bet feels like a scared bet. And remember, when you're betting for just 3 different reasons. You're betting as an isolation, as a value bet, or as a bluff. So for the under the gun and the cutoff, how would they view this 1,500 chip bet into 4,000? My opinion is they would view it as a bluff, and they would be coming along with a lot of different one-pair hands, possibly every single spade that they could have. Maybe not the lower 6 of spades and deuces, but any of these higher spades they could come along too, because it's such a little bet. Let's think about the bet sizing here. 1,500 now to win a pot of 5,500. If you were bluffing 4,000 in the pot, you bet 1,500. You need to win 27% of the time. Now remember, figuring out how often you need to win is just your bet size divided by the total pot after your bet's included. So if you were bluffing, you need to win just 27% of the time, which is pretty good. It's a scary board. You can maybe safely assume that these guys will fold anything without spades. So we could say 25% of the time at least they don't have spades, so they're folding there. But let's take a look at the cutoff. He is the first caller. He has to call 1,500 to win 7,000, which is the $1,500 bet that you placed plus what's already in the pot plus his bet. He has to call 1,500 to win 7,000. He only needs 21% equity in the hand. Now, if you remember the 4-2 rule, it states, of course, that you just multiply your outs times 4 on the flop to see your odds of hitting. Well, if he needs 21% odds, that's basically just 5 or 6 outs, times 4 is 20 to 24. He only needs 6 outs on this on this flop. He could legitimately call 10-9 suited right here, 10-9 of hearts, for example, and just hope to hit the 3 non-spade jacks and the 3 non-spade sixes for 6 outs, 24%, and then he has the equity right there. So you're making it really easy with the 1,500 chip bet, making it really easy for the cutoff to call. Now that he called the under the gun, geez, he's getting really good money on the 1,500. He has to call 1,500 for 8,500 chip pot, which is only 18% he needs. He basically needs 4 outs. Any pair plus any kind of backdoor draw can call right here, just with those odds. So next time, decide what you're doing. Are you trying to value bet or bluff bet? If you're trying to bluff, you'd probably have to bet bigger to get a lot of the draws to fold, better hands and draws to fold. And as a value, well, you want to charge any worse hands and charge any draws to come along with you. So at this point, really, you're not really limiting the field much at all with that 1,500 chip bet. So let's take a look. The cutoff decides to call your 1,500. What is he calling with here? So straight flushes, he doesn't have any. Flushes, there are 18 different combos of flushes. If I hover over this, you can see all those different double spade flushes that he could have. Now, we could take this out of his range if we're assuming that no matter what, he is raising every flush he gets or has to get value out of you. Well, all of these flushes right here, I say, could legitimately just call you, hoping that you hang yourself on the next street or the one after that. So I can't take any of these flushes out of his range just yet. He still has all of them. Now, the sets. There are 6 combos of sets, which is just pocket 8s and pocket 7s, as you can see right there. I think on such a wet board, if he had a set, he would definitely be raising your bet here. One thing to try to get value out of you in case you had the ace of spades or just a random spade as well. Like you could have pocket queens here with the queen of spades he could be getting value out of. I don't think he has a set because he just called. I think all his sets are raising here. Now 2 pair, there is only 3 different combos of 2 pairs, and that's the 8-7 of hearts, clubs, or diamonds. And I think 2 pair would also be raising you here. I don't think he'd be too scared that you had a better set or a better hand as in a set as him. I think he'd be raising to get value out of your pocket queens, jacks, 10s that you're c-betting, and that kind of stuff. So we can take the 2 pair out of his range as well. Now, he doesn't have any overpairs. Top pairs. Now, I think all of these top pairs would call. If you would bet more, like 2,500 or maybe 3,000, I think we could safely take these out of his calling range. Maybe he would call with the king, the jack kicker, but you only bet 1,500. So I think all those top pairs are calling. I would say all the flush draws are calling. That's the queen of spades, jack of spades, 10 of spades right there. And let's see, pocket pair below top pair. Let's keep those in for now. A lot of those could have flush draws, which are down here as well. The weak flush draw, we could say. So I think a lot of those pocket pair below top pairs are calling. Middle pairs now are all the different 8s. Now, I would say in general, they're not going to be calling you on this board. He still has under the gun to worry about, check raising on the flop. So I don't think they're calling at all. Of course, nut flush draws are calling. Second nut flush draws are calling. And for now, because your bet was so small, I would toss in the third nut flushes as well, And all those weak flush draws, those are all those weak hands with just, well, we could take out these weak flush draws. I doubt the 6 of spades would call. Now, the 9 of spades, that might call. He also has a backdoor straight draw with a 7, 8, 9. And I think all of these would possibly call at least one more street on your weaker bet. So when we hit accept, it takes those hands out of the equation right there. So the combos drop to 49. And then open enders right here, which are 6-5. Let's take out the under open endeds. Let's remove the 6-5, but let's keep these ones in. Accept it right there. So now we started off with total number of combos in his range 343. After the board goes in, we are now down to 146. So our bet whittled out a little, maybe 2/3 of his pre-flop range or so. Now we're going to the turn. He has 146 combos in his range, of which we are ahead 57%. 57% equity. Now let's go to the turn. On the turn, we have a 3-way pot. We're in the middle still because the under the gun called. 8,500 in the pot. Effective stacks 14.5. So the effective, the SPR is dropping greatly here. The turn 4 of clubs comes out, leaving our board king 8 7 4. 3 to the flush still, of course. So let's take that off. So now this is this is the range that we're working with right here. If I hover over it, it shows me just the original range that we started with. So he has 145 hands or combos of hands in his range. Now we decide, under the gun checks, we decide to bet 4,000 into this bigger pot. So we've upped our bet size, which is pretty good, closer to 50% here. The cutoff calls and the under the gun folds. So what is calling us in this case? So to determine that, we want to go back to this section here. No straight flushes in his range. Now flushes, I think all of these flushes are calling again. We've already committed so much to this pot. There's no need really to raise and scare us off of a top pair hand like our ace king. He could still have these and I think legitimately call your turn bet here. There's no straights, overpairs, none of this is in his hand. Now top pair hands, let's take a look at these. What of these are going to now continue to a second barrel right here? Well, I really doubt any of these are continuing along right here. The king queen would possibly because of the queen kicker, but the jack just starts to get too ugly and he has no backdoor not backdoor. He has no flush draw along with it. But I could see these ones coming along, assuming that they are the flushes, and we'll mark them down here. So the top pairs, these are the top pairs that he could be coming along with. Now, pocket pair below top pair, let's see what those are. Jacks, 10s, and 9s. We took them out, but they are here is in a weaker flush, so we'll get to them in a little bit. Middle pairs are not in his range. I don't think, basically it's just that ace 8 over there. Weak pairs, ace 7, ace 4, no. We can say those would fold right there. Ace highs are not going to call anymore. The nut flush draws, of course, in the second nuts, and then no made hands, those are all out by now too, so they're not within the filter. So far, we've taken it down from 146 combos down to 93 combos now. And then the nut flush draws, of course, those are all continuing. They don't have to shove here. They can just continue in hopes of hitting hitting their flush. I don't think they're necessarily shoving. We don't have to say that they're 100% of the time shoving. Second nut flush draws, which we can take a look, are all the queen of spade hands. I think those are continuing as well. And then the third nut flushes are all the jack of spades. I think those could continue as well. And now let's take a look at the weak flush draws. Let's go ahead and remove the 9 because, whoops. Oh, we already removed it. Yeah, it's already moved from the other one. So let's take all of these out. Let's keep this one in, of course, the ace 10. Right there. Good. So we're looking at 106 combos. So we kept the ace 10 off in. Good. Yep, and then so no flush draws, nope, and open-ended straight draws, let's say they're folding now to your bigger bet. So now we've narrowed his range from 146 combos to 91 combos now. And our equity is 64%, which is pretty darn good, because he does have a lot of draws still within his range. 91 combos there. And once again, I would question you, Matrim, just why are you betting that 4,000? Is it as a value or is it as a bluff? In this case right here. So if it were value, you might be wanting to go for more because he's calling with so many flush draws. You might have wanted to size that bigger to get extra value out of him there. But now the river comes. We're heads up on the river. We're out of position, of course. The river pot is 16-5. Effective stacks are 10-5. The river, 10 of clubs, comes for us right here, completing our board and making things maybe a little ugly for us. So the 10 of clubs just hit. You could see as soon as that 10 of clubs hit, it helped his overall range greatly. We went from a 64% favorite to a 37% dog, almost 38% dog here. So that's kind of ugly for us, of course. This guy has played passively on the last 2 streets, and we decide to check to him, and he pushes all in for 10-5. Now, what hands would make this shove? Out of all this, now that the 10 of clubs hit, it removes some combos from our range, and now we're down to just, whoops, let's take that out. Now we're down to 87 combos that are fully within his range right here. So what is shoving over our check? Well, flushes are shoving, I would say, of course. The 2 pairs, which is king 10 because that king 10 hit right there, is a 2-pair shoving on this, you bet 2 streets he has a chance to check behind and just save money in case he's beat by a flush, or in case you have trip kings or trip 8s or 7s that you decided to barrel with. Let's say that these are not shoving. He doesn't have any overpairs in his hand. And top pairs, let's take a look at the top pairs. Which top pairs are shoving here? Well, I don't think any of them would really shove, and the reason why is because he has pretty darn good showdown value. You could have been barreling with queens or jacks or nines. Let's see here. Yeah, with queens, jacks, nines. You could have been barreling with ace queen right there, like the ace of spades and the queen of diamonds or something. I think he has a lot of hands in his top pair that can beat your range right now. So I don't think he's shoving those. I think he's just calling to take the pot down. And then pocket pair below top pair. It's just pocket jacks. I highly doubt they're shoving. They do have equity just in case you didn't have a top pair the whole way and you just decided to barrel with nines or some random pair. I don't think those are necessarily shoving. Now, you could say pocket pair, middle pairs now. Are any of these shoving? Well, they could shove if they feel that the only way they can win is to blow you off of your hand if you have a top pair or better than them, because this is basically just all the different 10s middle pair. Let's put that into the shoving range, of course. And now our weak pairs that are shoving, maybe if they had just the ace of spades, basically is all that it is right there. So yeah. Now, let's say weak pairs aren't going to shave. And ace highs, probably not going to shove either. They still have a workable stack. So at the very end, we have only 26% of combos in their range that are shoving. You have only 31% equity versus that range right here. So on the river, he is betting 10,500. And so you have to call 10,500. Plus 16.5 plus 10.5, 37.5. You have to call 10,500 to win 37.5. You need 28% equity. You have 30%. So EV-wise, it is, assuming that you agree with everything that I did, I think right now that it is a barely profitable call. But barely profitable sometimes doesn't cut it. Let's say he does not shove those middle pairs. Well, now then, everything that he has beats you, let's say that he... let's take that out. So let's say that he also shoves weaker pairs. Well, you have much more equity versus this range right here. So in the case of him being a wider shover, a bluffer on the river, it's possible that the call is more profitable. But this guy played pretty passively on all 3 streets, pre-flop, flop, in the turn. Now the river, he wakes up. So if you put him on like the type of guy that just bluffs wildly on the river, then go ahead and make the call. But if you put him on just a value-oriented guy who's passive most of the time and only bets with value or bets for value, then I wouldn't make this call right here. So if we remove those, and if he's only shoving for value, you have 0% equity because every hand has you beat right now. So in my opinion, it's a fold right here. Even though when we have that middle pair in, it's barely plus EV. I think it's a fold just for the fact that I'm kind of guessing on this guy's, proclivities, and he showed passivity the first 3 streets, and the 4th street he wakes up. I got to put him on value right there. And just about every hand that he has beats our value hand. So I'm folding. Well, that's it. Thank you very much. I hope this kind of helped you guys understand how to look at a hand, how to range it from from pre-flop on. You have to make some assumptions pre-flop, like we gave him that 30% range to begin with, took out queens or better and ace-king or better. And then based on his actions, you just have to narrow it down street by street using the statistics section from there. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening, and please give me any of your comments or questions through the comments below. Take care.